All right. Now, this next topic that we're going to discuss is kind of something that we've talked about when it comes to deep fake, images and things like this, about moving forward with Marvel and possibly the MCU as well, like bringing back classic characters that don't really, or maybe the person who originally played them has passed on, or they're so iconic, like we were talking about Wednesday, like Luke Skywalker, doing the deep fake of Luke Skywalker because, obviously the guy that plays Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill, is, 80 years old or whatever. So in that same light, there's a potential for Stan Lee cameos could return to the MCU in this sort of fashion. Now, will they return in the MCU? We don't know exactly, but here's the exact quote that comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter and Andy Hayward, who is the Genius Brand CEO and chairman. He says, "It really ensures that Stan, through digital technology and archival footage and other forms, will live in the most important venue, the Marvel movies and Disney theme parks. It's a broad ideal." Okay, so they're not saying, okay, yeah, Stan Lee cameos are back. Fuck yeah. No, that's not what they're saying, but they have gotten the Genius Brands and Marvel and Stan Lee's estate have all come together and have really they've come to an agreement to use for Marvel to be able to use the likeness of Stan Lee, at least for an extended period of time, likeness of Stan Lee to use wherever they want to put, like on backpacks, playing cards, in their actual movies, which is where the cameo could fall into. But if they do the cameo, Seth, it does fall into that same category we were talking about with Star Wars and, using deep fakes and how icky that could be. What are your thoughts on reading this and then bringing Stan Lee back?
I'll say this. If we're talking about CGI, like if they were to bring him back CGI, theoretically, it's very different from the Luke Skywalker situation for one major reason. Luke Skywalker is a character. Stan Lee is a real person.
Right. Yeah, Cody Ray says it wouldn't be the same without him. That's fair.
I hope when it comes to maybe putting him back in movies, I hope they stick to what they've been doing the past couple movies. Specifically Venom 2 being my favorite one. Literally, he's walking through the store. There's a newspaper knocked over. Venom's tendril comes out of his back or whatever. Just pushes the newspaper up. Stan Lee's face is on the newspaper. Blink and you'll miss it.
Right.
Like, I think, and like, sometimes they'll put like his birthday on license plates and stuff like that. Like, I think that's the way to do it from now on. Like,
yeah, just have honor him without the background.
Yeah. But I like that idea.
When they say here that they specifically the CEO Andy Hayward specifically says the Marvel movies and Disney theme parks. The Marvel movies, I mean, that's very specific that they are going to bring him back into the movies one way or another. Yeah. Now, if you want to go for like the easier stuff, maybe as a like into the cartoon realm, the animated stuff, and then bring him back as the caricature of Stan Lee, would that be as icky to you?
If it was in an animated project, no, as long as he doesn't have any lines.
Right. Well, that's the thing. With the archival footage that they have, they could really make him say anything they want.
Yeah.
They really, I'm sure there's a program or a software out there that you put in all this footage that they have archived and you just type in words and it would, whatever algorithm that's in that thing will just pull out the words for you. You know what I mean? And yeah, you could totally do that. Absolutely. I mean, that's old technology. Like I remember they did that with Chef in South Park. The guy that played Chef ended up quitting South Park because he got offended, ironically, by one of their episodes, from one of the most offensive shows ever to see the light of day.
Yeah.
And so they ended up having to do an episode without Chef, but they used all of his archival footage and audio clips to make him, continue in that episode. Now that episode was odd because like they said, oh, there's something wrong with Chef. And like, you could tell they're just using random clips.
Yeah.
He's like, well, like it would look like it was just oddly chopped together, and it was obviously done on purpose that way, but that was 20 some odd years ago. I'm sure that technology has gotten way better, and they could seamlessly do this. Now, what if they bring him in a 100% full-fledged, looks like Stan Lee, no audio? Like you just see him like kind of like look at the camera and do a little nod or a wink or a wave or high five somebody, or Spider-Man swings past him and he just does this little maneuver, something like that. But it's like looks like the real Stan Lee. Would that trip you out? Would that make it easier for you or no?
I mean, it would be if they made it look exactly like him. It wouldn't be unsettling because you're like, oh, that looks weird. It'd be unsettling because like, oh, he's not alive and it looks real. That's weird. Like, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the context in which they're doing this in is. I wish they were specific, but they were specific enough to say the Marvel movies. So that does mean he will show up in the movies one way or another. The obvious thing that comes to mind is Ghostbusters, and it wasn't unsettling because you're like, oh, that looks weird. It was like, oh, that looks real. Like the CGI was incredibly good in that scene. Yeah. And so you're just like,
it was really good.
This is just this. It just weirded me out because I was like, we know Harold Ramis isn't alive anymore, but it's like I'm watching him, and it looks like he's actually there. And I didn't like it. Like it felt weird, and I feel like it would be the same for Stan Lee, no matter how good he looked. Like
I see, I'm on the fence with this. I really am. Like I could go either way. I completely understand that way of thinking that this is eerie, this is unnatural, we shouldn't do this, But at the same time, like this is a legacy. That's what this is. It's, and his family, his estate has agreed to this. Yeah. I think if we're going to do this, and we've said this before, Seth, in the past, I think going forward, would it make it less eerie if it was like a contractual like agreement, like, hey, when I die, you have my permission to do this. I'm okay with this. Would that make it better?
I'd still find it odd, but I wouldn't find it like disrespectful. I'd find it like, oh, that still weirds me out. But if that's what he wanted, then I mean, it's not disrespecting him anymore. But it's just, I mean, obviously, as far as we know, Stan Lee never said, oh yeah, you can go ahead and use CGI me when I die. So I mean, I don't know. I think I genuinely do not know what to think. Like,
I don't think he would have an issue with it. Cody Ray says, I think just images of him in BG. What's BG?
I think background. I think it's.
Oh, okay. And background. Listen, if you guys are gonna do initials of things, like I'm so bad at acronyms and initials and like abbreviations, I'll never guess what.
I'm usually bad at it too. I've never seen anybody use BG for background, but I don't know. Made sense.
Images of him and BG as Easter eggs would be better. Yeah, I agree with you, Cody. I think that's a smart way to do it. That's what Seth said, like what they did in Venom. I think those are very creative ways to, insert him into the films. But maybe they have bigger plans, and we can sit here and speculate all day. I mean, how much did we speculate about, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and how much of that were we correct in our speculation? Like 1% we kind of got,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, he says, okay, I'm sorry, I'll remember that. Okay, he's talking about the BG. Thanks, Cody. So we weren't chastising you or anything. It's just, like if Seth wasn't here, I'd be like, CG, I don't know what that means. or BG. The BGs. All right, so Stan Lee cameos could come back. If they do, I'll be okay with it, unless they're really cringy and like they have them like say a line of dialogue that's just odd. Like,
it really depends on how they do it. Like, I have to see it before I really decide how I feel about it.
Like, okay, just hypothetical. Like, what if in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, like they already had the permission to do this, and they resurrect Stanley like out of the coffin. Like you see him like Evil Dead style coming out of the ground.
What if
like,
Stan Lee was the leader of the Illuminati?
Oh man. Well, I mean, he does have that role in the MCU. That one role where I forget the character's name, but where he would show up in all the movies. And he's supposed to be playing the same character.
Yeah,
I think that character still exists.
Guardians 2 is what made that a thing. That's what made that like, oh yeah, he's the same character in every movie.
I love that. I think that's great, man. All right, well, there you go. Stan Lee cameos could return. I personally don't have a problem with it, but I mean, the low-hanging fruit of all this is obviously for, as I said, like images that you can sell, like backpacks, notebooks, whatever you want to put Stan Lee's face on or name on.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.